Hey everyone, Jared here. Today I wanted to talk about how to put on an award-winning lunch and learn presentation to go ahead and win new business, get new leads, while at the same time going ahead and building your existing business and networking with others to actually find out other outlets where you can go ahead and extend your business. Now, what I mean by that is you could potentially meet someone potentially in one of these networks that could go ahead and give you a liaison network referral to someone else that you can go ahead and benefit with your services. So what I'm going to show you today is an email that I sent out to Matt over at Williams Companies. And this email essentially includes how I want to go ahead and set up a lunch and learn presentation. Now, I'm not going to go over exactly how I went ahead and did this. I'll go ahead and post that up to my website later with a webinar, and I'll also do it through online course paid training. So this is just give you a tidbit of exactly how I did it. Then later on, I'll go ahead and do some more advanced training to show you the exactly cradle to grave, step one, all the way to the phase, so the final to the close to get the PO, to get the money, in order to go ahead and help them do the business that needs to be done. Now, this is the email I sent over to Matt from Williams. It basically says, Team Hydro, I spoke with Jared today about some particular pains that we are having, and I highly recommend we set up a meeting to discuss those services. Jared is open next week, so we can find out a time that can work. Let's get him on the calendar. I'm confident their business model will result in cost savings and, most importantly, less headaches. Missy, Mark, I assume you guys would like to coordinate effort, but if you like, I can set it up. Matt, Supervisor, Williams. So, what did I have to do in the meantime? Well, first I had to follow back with Matt to go ahead and coordinate exactly what needs to be done and what kind of goals, specific goals, especially for him and his team, what they're looking for. And he understanding kind of the pains and headaches that Williams is going and having at this time within this quarter, within this realm of 6 months to a year, even 3 years, 5 years down the road. Again, guys, this oil and gas is a long-term game. There's maybe pains right now with the oil price being as low as it is, but there's always other outlets to go ahead and shift focus on to go ahead and benefit what's beneficial for the entire industry, such as infrastructure buildup, which is what Williams is doing right now. Now, in exactly what I mean by this, I know that they got bought out by Energy Transfer not too long ago, but it just shows you that even though they did get bought out by Energy Transfer, they're still acting as their own entity in a sense, that they can pretty much do the things that Williams is good at doing, which is building up gas assets and doing it very effective and efficiently. It just Energy Transfer wants to have some of those assets because they understand how beneficial it could be to have someone like Williams as an ally to go ahead and extend their compass, their capex, and also a lot of their assets as well. So what I did was when I went ahead and followed up with Matt, we sat down again and talked about what his initiatives are, what kind of things that are going on within the 3, 6, 12, 3-year mark that he needs to go ahead and focus on and focus his attention on as in his department. And what I did is I went up aligning my services to go ahead and help him with that realm. First off, it's going to be one simple. Keep it simple, guys. You want to keep it simple. You don't want to go ahead and be very complex with your delve of thinking. You don't want to dive in deep. These guys are engineers, of course, but if you don't simplify things where they're very black and white from a metrics point of view, let's say you're using some numbers, which what engineers, project managers like, because you can measure those numbers, then you're basically shooting yourself in the foot with a bunch of verbatim. And no one likes that because it's not transparent, it's not honest, and it shows that you may be incompetent in what you're talking about. So make sure you bring as much data, numbers, and as real transparency as possible to the table to go ahead and make sure that you help out the guys that need help out within whatever particular problem they may be having. Now, number 2, make sure you establish a need. There could be other needs in there as well. You don't know exactly what they may need. You may think you know what they may need, but when you get in there, there could be a whole different realm of problems they could be having. Dive in deep. Ask open-ended questions. Well, let me ask you this, Matt. What else are you having problems with that maybe potentially keep you up at night? Or what else do you think there is going on that you're kind of worried about within the company? Is there anyone else that you think I should talk to within this organization that would probably need some help? Or can you do the intros when we sit down at lunch and talk about some further? Would that be okay? Use subtle instances like okay go a long way because it's very subtle, and then at the same time it's to the point where there's a benefit. They get some type of value exchange, I get some type of value exchange. They get lunch, I get to meet a new person to put in my network to go ahead and help them add value to their bottom line. Now, what happens from here? So after the follow-up initial meeting, I then go ahead and post another team meeting to go ahead and post strategy. Now, they want a lunch and learn presentation. That's correct. So I know exactly how many people that I need to go ahead and be able to speak to, cater lunch to, and also make sure that I keep it within a corner realm of thought and keep it very easy so that it's very transparent so it can go ahead and circumnavigate between different departments within the company. So to give you more specifics on that, I need to go ahead and think about A, the project managers, B, the engineers, C, procurement, D, and some of the executives. There is also some more people that could be involved in there. It's up to my job and duty when I'm at my first initial meeting to go ahead and find out who exactly I will be catering and tailoring my speech to. So those are some of the important points for after the first initial meeting. Second meeting with my team, we're going to go ahead and post strategy. And with this post strategy content that I'll be building, I know exactly what A, how to keep it simple, B, the need, and I also need to make sure that I align myself to make sure that whatever services we have can go ahead and meet their problems. So I need to tailor some things with our services to make sure that I can follow up some proper metrics and show the data for those metrics to go ahead and get those services. So let me give you an example. So we're talking about hydro testing here. Well, let's do this. So some of their problems that they were having was that they were using a general contractor to go ahead and use a lot of their services to go ahead and then basically oversee a lot of the subcontractors. What happens is that the general contractor takes whatever money that costs to actually get the subcontractor to do the work with, they mark it up 15-20%. They mark it up 15-20% over 10 to 15 different subcontractors. That's a huge, big margin that they go ahead and send the bill into to the asset operator gas company. So what was my initial concern? Well, I knew Matt was understanding that he didn't know exactly what was going on in the field, that there was a lot of change orders, a lot of missing data that he was missing from the GC, that the GC said that they were missing from the subcontractor. You can't blame us because the subcontractor didn't give it to the certain particular person in time, and so there was a lot of big hassle back and forth. There's a miscommunication, and B, there's a high cost. So what I did was I went back and I aligned the miscommunication, which had no transparency, as well as the high cost. Well, what I ended up doing was I know that these things were too headache, so let me go ahead and place my presentation to surround it around that. So I'm going to surround my presentation around aligning my services where I can keep the costs down while at the same time align myself to actually show that there's a huge communication if the operator dealt directly with me, the subcontractor. So what I did was I went ahead and I made a PowerPoint presentation that looks a lot like this, and I just changed up a few of the things. So what I did was I have one of our biggest pipes with the biggest customers we worked with to show value and importance and show that we know exactly how professional we are, that we're using complex advanced assets, and that we also been doing many hours of jobs like this to show that we're very prestigious as a subcontractor to do the work performed directly to the asset operator, because we work with many big asset operators just like Williams. Now, also want to show a different array of services. So right here, I use the fact that we do a lot of pigging services as well as the testing services to show that the fact that we do have OQ personnel that are out in the field that know exactly how to run certain pigging services the way that it can keep the cost down, as well as go ahead and keep it ahead of schedule and under budget, which is something that operators like dearly, because the fact that you can keep jobs ahead of schedule means less time for service companies to be behind, which means less cost for them and less headache for them, because they're not losing money for one, having product not in the pipe to go ahead and shoot down to the line, because the more product they don't have in the line, they lose a ton of money per day. And also, it's also going to dip into their budget. So the more time they keep their general contractors, which the general contractors keep their subcontractors out in the field, the more money that's costing them. So it's a double whammy there. So they can see the big time just gap in cost just from those two instances alone. Now, we also wanted to show a different tailor of services here. So what I wanted to go ahead and do is I wanted to show the operator some of our cream of the crop services. And this is a very simple slide. I wanted to explain it more in detail through data and calculations number, which I provided a little bit through. But the thing that's most important when you're doing these lunch and learn presentations, which I want to touch on more, is to share a story. They say that the new way of thinking now when you're doing presentations is that you want to keep the slides very slim. This is still a little bit too much, but what I want to do with you guys, since I want to engage with you, especially these people watching this webinar and also watching the podcast, is that I want to go ahead and share a story. If you can share a story that piques interest, creates a sense of urgency, and hits them with an emotional chord with the customers, you're going to come out more on top with actually going ahead and doing the work, because you understand what it's like walking the miles in their shoes. They understand what it's like thinking with their brain, living in their bodies, because you're one of them. And you know exactly what the solution is because you're a part of them. You're building an intimacy and trust with your customer. And that's the most important thing, is building the intimacy and trust with the customer, because if you can build the intimacy and trust with the customer, then you can win the business with the customer as well. So I just want to explain a little bit of our services on this end, and this is basically our bread and butter services. So mark that down. For slide 3 is going to be your cream of the crop services, the services that you really strive by and you do really good work in. Now, if this side of the things we're going to do at your service, this is more of a breakdown. It actually shows a little bit more transparency, and it goes over our overall test plan services scope with one of our cream of the crop services. So just let me go ahead and give you a little more better details with that. So one of our services is the hydro testing, and what that is the pre-clean, the test, then you have the pneumatic testing, either or, then you have the ILI tool runs that go through it, then you have the torquing, bolting, leak detection, project management that goes along that, and then of course you have the drying at the very end, and then you have the commissioning back of the line. So some of those things are some of the services that you want to go ahead and speak about. You want to make sure that you line it up in proper steps, which of course the operator knows, but it's good to show the transparency here, the numbers, the visuals, everything like that, and also resonate with the story of how you got to where you were today, while at the same time showing these operators or contractors exactly how you are different and what you can do to actually make their lives a little bit easier. And you can show them with these steps. It breaks it down so there's not this big, huge, complex, huge system. You can break it down in these small little increments, which shows a little more easy to digest material so that they can go ahead and digest it easier. It makes sense to them more because it's in smaller parts, because it's just taking a little bit more, a lot less brain power to go ahead and manifest that, while at the same time showing them the actual details that you're putting into the steps when you go ahead and get out into the job site to do the quality service that you do. Now, experience, this is a very, very important part. When you want to focus on experience, is that you want to focus on the past projects that you've worked on. What makes you so crucial? Who have you worked with before? A lot of the things that I've seen, especially in the oil and gas industry, is how long you've been in business, who do you work for, and what jobs have you worked on? So the bigger the jobs that you've worked on, the longer that you've been in business, and also the customers that you work for are going to be a huge advantage when speaking to these new customers to go ahead and win their business. Now, I wanted to make sure when I did this slide as well that I wanted to show that I can be one of the big dogs within the game by showing them that the Keystone XL pipeline was one of the biggest pipelines that we worked on. It was one of the biggest ones that we worked on. Of course, everybody knows Keystone Pipeline, but this project was a huge project we worked on. It's very, very strenuous. There's a lot of people, very high end, very brilliant, very big time companies working on it, and it's a very long and high diameter pipeline. So we show that we know the complexity of it. We understand that in order to get to do the Keystone Pipeline, you can't just be any average Joe. There's a lot of safety platforms you can be a part of, regulations, and also at the same time, very, very strict procedures that you need to follow in order to work on it. When you show that type of value, it makes the customer realize that these people are ahead of their game. They follow a clear-cut order, while at the same time that their people that they're working with are high quality, because if someone's hiring them to work on the Keystone, then we should be able to hire them no problem to work on a project that doesn't have the same media's attention as a Keystone, doesn't have that same marketing effect as Keystone because it was highly publicized. Then also I picked on some of our biggest lines that we worked on: 184 miles of 20-inch, 36 inches to 42 inches, some more BP lines, and then Weatherford lines. Well, I just use these because these lines right here, of course, high diameter, and the higher diameter the lines are, the more pressure that you're going to be going ahead and pressuring up to, which causes a little bit more potential safety hazards. So you got to be careful when you go ahead and pressure up to these big time lines. But I wanted to focus on, if we can actually pressure up to these big time lines and we can complete these long projects, then there's no problem why we should be able to work on a line that's 20 inches long or 12 miles long or whatever it may be. So this is very good in showing that you worked with such difficult and complex projects, and that you are capable of actually doing the quality work that's involved in it. Now, I go to the next slide because this is our mission statement. It is our goal to align ourselves with asset owners who provide accurate and audible records using safe and efficient services for our customers. And then I go in more later on with some type of vision as well. Now, this is basically saying we have a company culture, and that we stick by this company culture, by a realm of ethics, around a realm of energy, lots of creativity, lots of transparency. And then we are also going to go ahead and live by that by always doing quality work. I think some of the key beliefs that you want to go ahead and put in this mission statement when you go ahead and implement this and say this to your customer, Warren Buffett said this as well, is that you always want to focus on how much energy you have to go ahead and use metrics to go ahead and add to your bottom line. You're always trying to go ahead and test yourselves to go ahead and be one of the best that you can be within the industry. You're not afraid to try new things in order to get there. So creativity, intelligence is there. Then energy. Energy is the first one. Intelligence is going to go ahead and be the second one. Intelligence, you want to always be people that are going to be best practice, the ones that are striving for new ideas, new realm of thinking. You want to think about some of the biggest independents and majors and super majors. They have some of the most brilliant people working for them, and they're also some of the biggest. Not just because they were always that big. I mean, look at Hess, look at Honeywell. They were never that big. It's because they hired great people around them. So if you hire intelligent people around you, then you're going to grow from within, because they have a much more streamlined, much more faster thought rates, and also not afraid to try new things in order to grow the company. And that's some of the most important things that I want to bring out. Is it's about the energy, it's about the intelligence, and it's all about the integrity. Those are the three traits that should be somewhat in the mission statement to go ahead and exude to the customer and show in some sort of fashion of how that culture of mindset within those three traits and attributes can go ahead and bring this company together and the company culture together to help other people be successful. And that's the main focus behind that. Real transparency on real hydro costs. So this is where we want to talk about exactly with alignment. How am I going to align myself to go ahead and help solve Williams' problems with the GCs of the miscommunication and the high cost? Well, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to talk about with data that I have on the other slide, where it's going to be about the cost of 15% reduction and the transparency. So I'm going to show them through data, as well as any type of other slides and words that, in other type of slides and experiences that I do have, of how exactly I can reduce this if they work directly with me, while at the same time have a faster communication, because we're not having to play telephone where I'm talking to a superintendent, a foreman, and that foreman talks to another superintendent or former spread boss, and then that person talks to the gas company. It's going to be direct line of communication with lots of pre-planning at the very beginning, so everyone's on the same page, because the more we pre-plan, the more we can go ahead and strategically attack this project the way that we can attack it, so we can go ahead and meet their desires and goals. And that's what we're striving for here. And if you can show that through a story as well as the same time with data, then over time you can win with a customer as long as you stay on the ball and that they need your service. So that's going to be the main focus, and that's what I brought in here. And one of the ones that I actually went ahead and talked about was our bid versus actual. This is going to be a Gantt chart, which is going to be a scheduling chart. And what it was a data sheet that showed exactly what the bid project was when we first quoted it, and when the customer wanted to have, big time customer, of course, we want to make sure we put that in there as well, because if they're a competitor within another competitor, if their competitor is doing it, their best practice as well, they usually follow suit and respect other competitors, even though they are competitors. So I'll show another prestigious competitor of how they had a particular project bid pointed out through scheduling, and how we actually met those scheduling needs by being ahead of schedule, which made them under budget. And I show that through an Excel spreadsheet, through data, and through a story that resonates very well with everyone else, and show them exactly how we did it through pictures, videos that I'll explain to my advanced training video. But that's the way that you want to think. You always want to think pre-plan, fast communication, alignment, transparency, and how you can help them bring out the value to get to their bottom line. Under promise and over deliver. So one of the key things that I believe that's going to be very, very crucial within any business, especially in the oil and gas business, is that the more pre-planning that your projects have, the more you can actually get ahead of schedule and under budget. Now, what do I mean by pre-planning? So what I do is, I think the main focus is for any best practice organization, the faster I can get the scope of work or any type of statement of work or whatever it may be, even just a job scope, if I can pre-plan and do a bid walk and actually go see the job site, the better I can go back and go ahead and plan this project and make sure I get the proper protocol, the project management services, the third-party rentals, whatever they may be, to go ahead and get them out there to actually go ahead and exceed the expectations of the customer. So that's going to be the main point of view. The faster that we can go ahead and get to the information for the project, the better we can actually add value for you. And that's something we really strive for. I think if you go ahead and do that for any business, it doesn't really matter how complex your assets are, how advanced your assets are, how advanced and intelligent your people are. If you're hardworking, you focus on pre-planning and focusing on the job to go ahead and reach the customer's needs, you're going to be successful. It's the people that go ahead and plan ahead that reach the successes and desires to help others to actually grow their business. So that's the main focus of right here, is the pre-planning. You pre-plan for the job, you're going to go ahead and actually do even a better job than if you were someone else who would just normally plan, or say the least, actually get the job within 72 hours, 96 hours. They had to go ahead and rush and get something out there to go ahead and do the job. That's something you never really want to focus on if it's a customer that wants to go ahead and be more cost effective, more quality effective, to make sure the quality of services out there out on the job site. Now we're going to talk about one-stop convenience. The one thing that you want to make sure that if you're a company that you can do in the oil and gas is that you don't just want to have maybe 2 or 3 services or one service. That could be the cause at the very beginning, but you want to make sure that if you're going to go ahead and talk to some of these bigger guys, you can't just be a one-trick pony. You can't just have one cream of the crop service that potentially solves everyone's needs, because it doesn't work that way in the oil and gas industry. It's very, very complex. There's a lot of different needs, a lot of different problems to those needs, and you got to make sure that you have a certain laser in focus niche to go ahead and solve those problems and actually answer those, and actually go ahead and do it in a very high quality performance, performance style of work. So what I mean by that is that every single scope of work that I do get or have seen, it's never the same. You're not going to just have one certain particular asset on the field and that's always going to be able to go ahead and handle that project. You got to make sure that you understand the terrain, the ambient temperatures. You got to make sure you got to understand the subcontractors you're working with, the GC that you're working with, even the asset operator you're with. There's so many different variables that come into play that you have to make sure that you utilize yourself. If you needs to be a project management service, you have to go ahead and utilize to make sure that you can call up someone that's more geographically specific within that area to go ahead and help the customer out to reach some type of end result, complete the job for that day, or actually complete the job in general. So give you more specific, a lot of hydro testing companies, even a lot of GCs and other subcontractors, they're just not a one-trick pony. For us, and what I actually have seen, especially working with several different subcontractors, for instance, we'll stick with hydro testing because this is the slide. We'll actually have the hydro testing equipment and actually out there. Now, we actually do provide the full service, but we don't do the dryers. We don't have the dryers. We don't have that equipment. So what do? We do that, but we actually have a PM service. We do a full Gambit service, but we show the customer through project budgetary estimates that we do have to go ahead and rent some of this equipment out to go ahead and get the dryers, to go get the pigs. Even though we do the service, we actually have to go ahead and get the equipment. So you want to make sure that there's always some type of niche in there, that there is always something that the customer could be having wrong as a problem, that you can go ahead and take some of that equipment and actually have the OKey certified people to go ahead and operate that equipment so you can actually go ahead and add value to the customer. That's something you always want to think about. So what I did here with the slide, whatever the shift of focus was with the customer, especially with what they have, we would say, okay, look, I understand that. This is our scope of services. This is things that we have worked on. We can work with you on that. We would just have to go ahead and sit down and we'll show you the transparency of how we actually get the number as well as do the service so we can all make sure we're on the same page. Would that be okay? So as long as you actually show that and actually go ahead and follow up with some type of value exchange in the meantime, which I'll show you in my advanced video of how to do that, then what you'll do is you'll actually win a customer who is going to be using you for multiple times in multiple different arrays and in multiple different departments because they're all individual silos. So one could be using you potentially for hydro testing. One could be using you for leak detection. Someone else could be using you for water disposal, frac tank disposal, frac rentals, whatever it may be. But if you can show that through transparency and show that you have a full line of services, the better you can add value to your customer and to their bottom line. Best practices and lessons. So this is going to be the data logging, data gathering. So we're going to go talk to Williams. Some of the things they're also looking for is how do you gather data or how do you harness technology? So we want to make sure that we keep everything honest and transparent. What I mean by that is that we want to be do it safety so that when we do get audited that we don't have any violations. 2, that we can actually show a lot of metrics, a lot of measurements through our data. And 3, just keep everything transparent. We keep everything transparent so someone can easily look at a sheet and say, aha, I see where the money's going in for that. That makes them actually have more of a relief because they can see all the numbers and data, which is easy to digest to actually know A, where their equipment's going, B, where their men are going, C, what's going to the job site, D, money, etc. So those are the realms of different specifics I can go in when you're going to be able to show data logging and data gathering, which is something what Williams wanted. Now, this is one example that we have, and this is going to be showing you some data gathering. What we do is we show project deliverables, equipment delivery, vendor owner description, responsible party. We have some notes on it. Then we also make sure that we go ahead and follow this to DOT OSHA standards regulations, which is constantly updated. And even under PHMSA as well, that we're always going to be in regulatory compliance with their documentation as well. So we do this, we show them the data, we show them the documentation, and we want to make sure that they understand that, these guys mean business because they do have the audible records, while at the same time they have their metrics in place in these records. So if we need to go back and search for something, we have right here in this book, this pamphlet, in this document sheet. So we understand where our money's going, where our operations, our assets are going as well. So make sure you show some type of data gathering, data logging in there as well. Safety matters, guys, and in order to go ahead and work in the oil and gas industry, if you don't have anything anything less than an A, you're potentially not going to be able to work with any of the bigger guys, which is something that you want to strive for, because that's how you get companies to exponentially grow, get bought out, and also to be part of the big services where everyone wants to work with because you're there. Safety matters, and if you don't have anything less than an A in ISNet World, you really can't get there too easily. Some of the biggest ones I can name off the top of my head are going to be ISNet World, NCCER, and also Veriforce. So those are usually the 3 top platforms to go ahead and make sure that you're a part of. There's also some smaller ones as well that you can go ahead and be a part of, that can show you a lot of the OQ certified guys who are going to be able to go ahead and perform your projects of the highest ability, while at the same time they have the integrity and the merit to complete the job in a very safe, productive, optimal, and effective manner. And also, the last thing anyone wants is an accident out in the field. Any type of incident or accident out in the field is definitely a no-no. Companies will not be able to work with you anymore if those certain things happen like that on the field, whether it's drug related, whether it's accident related, whether it's something physical happening to any type of worker on the field. So you want to make sure you follow this to a T, and make sure that either A, you have a safety manager on standby to go ahead and make sure you update your programs effectively, or also that you go ahead and use your regulatory compliant government entity, and they'll always ask you for help. I went to go visit the RRC in Austin about a couple months ago, and they're willing to help out people to go ahead and get regulatory compliant as long as they show the assets that they know that they need to get in compliant, or any type of documentation program that they would like to get in compliant, and then they'll actually basically show them a streamlined documentation and how to get those assets complied so you don't get your wrist slapped, as well as a heavy fine from DOT or OSHA. So some of the things that you want to show in safety, since this is a very important topic, it's probably the most important topic in the oil and gas industry, is that you want to show that you're doing protocols to go ahead and show the most advanced safety, strictest procedures that keeps the employees up to date with code. So some of the things that I would highly suggest is use a safety program. There should be a safety guidebook within each and every company that you follow to a T, while at the same time there's constant material being pumped through with your employees of quizzes, of worksheets that they can keep on their toes about, to make sure that they have the proper PPE and they have the utmost integrity when they're out on the job to go ahead and perform the highest quality work as safely as possible. Those will actually go ahead and go out through your job book, but what you're doing is, when you're showing this to customer, is showing that A, you can perform the work because you actually hire safely qualified guys, and that they're not going to be taking a liability risk if you have a couple of red marks through some type of horrible accident that you had out in the field or up in a job terminal through safety. And this goes more into safety training. This shows an actual grid where it shows the step of how we assess certain safety structures. I won't go ahead and go in too deep, but what you really want to focus on here is that the program is intense, it's mandatory, and there is a protocol every week to a month that all your employees have to go ahead and follow in order to work at your company. And if you show that to the customer and show that they're upholding their part within the company, while at the same time upholding their part within any type of regulatory compliance firm, then that will help them along the way to say, you know what, these guys aren't a liability. I feel very comfortable with them because they hire top quality OQ safe certified individuals and personnel to work out on job sites. We can see that through these safety platforms and also through their safety training. Now, I mentioned here in drones, the reason why I mentioned these drones here is because I wanted to show that we're constantly harnessing technology. It doesn't matter if they're drones, it doesn't matter if they're any type of UAV. It could be anything. It could be any type of new GIS software. It could be any type of new technology used out in the field, whatever it may be. But you want to show that you're constantly innovating, that you're constantly harnessing technology with what I mentioned before with data gathering, logging, and also the technology part, that you're using these assets and constantly creating new ideas to go ahead and be more beneficial for not only your company, but to the customer, to A, save them more cost, B, be more safe, C, deliver more quality work. Those are some of the metrics that I'm giving you as of right now to focus on. Customers love seeing that because it shows that you're willing to think outside the box, and it makes it sound like a more prestigious company because you have the back end to do that. Because a lot of the companies that you do see, and you're starting to slowly not see it as much anymore, is that in oil and gas, especially when I first started, it was a very baby boomer business, and even old school than that, in which a lot of things was even done on paper, and harnessing technology besides email and phone calling, those are out of question. So those are some of the things that we actually want to focus on, is the fact that we're willing to go ahead and try new things, be innovative, create new opportunities, harness technology to go ahead and help you, the customer, get your projects ahead of schedule and under budget safely. Now, operational training, this goes back to safety as well, but it also comes from an operations standpoint. Houston Area Safety Council is a good outlet and example for this, because they actually do a ton of training from an operational standpoint to go ahead and make sure that the workers that do perform out on the job know exactly what they're doing from an application as well as written test form standpoint. So we want to make sure that your company also has some sort of test to go ahead and make sure that it accommodates for whatever the customer may be asking you to do on the job site, whether it's something that you do a million times before or something brand new, that you do have the manpower asset, the experience, and the expertise to go ahead and perform the job at the highest quality as safely as possible with experienced professionals. And that's the main focus with the operational training in this slide. Now, I'm going to go over more of the Trans-Canada Gulf Project. What I mean by this is I'm going to go ahead and deep within how we actually went ahead and helped the customer. Now, this Trans-Canada Gulf Project is going to be the Cushing Terminal, which is going to be part of the Keystone because it's pushing out from the pipeline down to the Gulf Coast to go ahead and be refined. Now, the reason why I bring this one up is because A, it shows value. Trans-Canada Keystone. Biggest pipeline there is, right? Highly publicized. Not the biggest one there is, but the biggest as far as media attention goes. Now, on top of that, we're going to be talking about how we actually got the metrics, as well as share them the story of helping the customer reach the desires and wants that they wanted, while at the same time focusing on the similar problems that Williams has had. What were they? Aligning my services with their miscommunication, which led to longer schedule out on the jobs, which we wanted to eliminate, as well as a higher cost of change orders because of certain aspects of not proper documentation, as well as certain equipment going up there that's getting upmarked from the subcontractor, then it's getting heavily upmarked to the GC and then to the customer. So you want to make sure that's still focused and align with that type of mindset to go ahead and show the benefits if they go ahead and use you for this, because you're working with such a prestigious project such as Keystone, with such a prestigious customer such as Trans-Canada, while sharing a story that's going to resonate with them with the metrics to back it up. And then I'm going to go ahead and do it again by showing them another scenario, which may be a little bit different, but shows them the aspects of how we actually did it in a different way by sharing a story, in a different way of how we measure results, while at the same time showing the prestigious value of actually helping with that particular customer, a high-end customer, get the desires and wants that he wanted. So if you actually show the desires and wants the customer wants, and you can go ahead and do that, show the metrics, share the story, as well as go ahead and put that into another slide as well. The more you have, the better. Keep it low though. You don't want to bombard them over an hour or so. Keep it very slim, but you want to show that you're actually reaching a lot of different, many different customers and helping them add to the bottom line. You're not new to this. You've been doing this for such a long time that you are best practice, and that's the mindset you want to have. Now this goes into even more, just another style Gantt chart here. It shows initial timeline with space restricted. It's just another different chart to look at. I go in more in my advanced training with more calculations, and this just shows a chart which numbers, easy numbers to digest, and it just shows the days amount on the job compared to like what would happen, especially going out there with project bidded, the way that they would have been bidded by us at the very beginning, but because of when we pre-planned, it ended up being ahead of schedule. And this is what I'm showing with this case study of right here, from the cost of space limitations to the enterprise 30-inch diameter job. Now, this is going to be our last few slides here, guys. This is going to be equipped for efficiency. This is going to be just showing the customer that we buy state-of-the-art assets. We are always encompassing somehow to go ahead and harness technology, and that we buy these state-of-the-art assets, by always thinking about, if we get the state-of-the-art assets and complex assets, that means we're going to be more effective and efficient out of the field. So if we have the power to do that, it's only going to add more value to you. So it means if you get a hydro test pump unit to go ahead and do a test within 4 hours compared to 8 hours, that's less time for you on the field, my friend. What does that mean? That means you're out of the job early, ahead of going ahead and get the job ahead of schedule, while at the same time go ahead and delivering a bill to the end user, or actually saving money for yourself if you're the gas company from not having product in the line, because you're actually going ahead and using such complex and unique and advanced assets. And that's going to be the mindset behind that. And so we want to make sure we can tailor ourselves to actually show that we have advanced assets. And these advanced assets, they don't have to be equipment. They can be manpower, meaning they could be a project manager that has 30 years experience, has been doing it forever, so that he knows how to run a job correctly, safely, and also with high quality. Or it could be something that has to do with some type of technology harnessing, like a drone, a UAV, where it has less people walking the line. When the line is pressured up, the drone can actually go out there and not have to walk the line and put someone in a potential hazard or risk. And we also want to show here at the very end, in compliance, especially with doing anything that has to do with subcontractor work, that the data as well as the documentation that we do hand in is always going to be audible by DOT or OSHA. But even though it's always going to be audible by DOT or OSHA, that it meets their standards. It's not going ahead and get them red line, red marked, to the sense that they're going to go ahead and have a heavy fine with their assets because of some contractor or GC not delivering proper documentation. Now, what you want to do is you want to show that with the documentation booklet that you do have, and the reason why it gets them up to documentation regulatory compliance with certain other customers, and how you stay on top of that. If you can show those aspects and they have a desire and need to go move forward, I wouldn't see another reason why you should not go move forward with these customers. Of course, everything happens in oil and gas for a reason, but as long as you stay on top of the ball, your chances of success of actually go ahead and winning the customer over, as long as you follow up with them. Remember, it takes 8 touches to go ahead and win and sell. So as long as you stay on top of the customer and show value and show that you mean business and that you're going to do it in an honest, transparent way, then you can go ahead and win these types of projects. It's something that happens all the time. It's not like it's rocket science. It's a little bit of psychology, a little bit of an art form, but you want to make sure that what you're pitching is something that you're very good at and also can help people. You keep it in a mindset of how you can tailor your services and align them to their needs. Then you can go ahead and win the business if you follow this type of presentation. So this Lunch and Learn presentation went very well. We ended up winning an MSA with Williams and also performing some work with Williams. So this is basically the structure, and to go ahead and top off at the end of it. And guys, if you would like to have this presentation template, please just go ahead and email me at Jared, Jared, at oilgrowth.com, and I'll go ahead and forward it over to you. But remember, these are some of the 3 metrics that you want to focus on: data gathering, data logging, harnessing technology, while at the same time keeping it simple. Make sure that you find a need and can align yourself, which is the 3rd one, with a need, and make sure you propose some type of solution to it with a Lunch and Learn presentation. So you've seen the slides right here of how you can go ahead and win the business and follow these certain protocol. And if you have any questions whatsoever about what is the next steps to the second part or third, what do I need to do a follow-up, or I haven't gotten a PO yet or a bid yet, what do I do in order to go ahead and move forward? What you're going to do is I'm going to show you how to do that in the advanced training which is what I'm going to follow up with next. There is a point where that could happen, but this is the overall scope of how you're going to go ahead and do that. Everyone's different. There's a lot of things that go on, but if you follow this key set of rules, especially with this presentation, you're going to be successful. Just remember, just keep your eye on the ball, keep following up, and make sure when you do follow up, there's some sort of value exchange. I hope that helped everyone. And what you can do is, if you have any questions, remember guys, you have my email address, and make sure that you follow me up on the oil spill, which is going to be pipebuzz.com/theoilspill, the-oil-spill, to go ahead and see other news as well as value exchanges and info that are going on in the oil and gas industry. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.